Alright, welcome back to another video. So, basically, this video is going to be my version on how you pick spool pins. Weekly giveaway, still active for the Sparrows Reload Kit. You just gotta be subscribed, comment below. Sparrows Reload Kit, I'll have the link in the description so you can check it out and see what it is. So without further ado, thank you guys for all the support. We're finally at 130 subs. It's pretty damn awesome. You guys have been killing it. More and more people participating. Also, if you have any idea, or if you have something you would like to see as a weekly giveaway, just feel free to leave it in the comments. You know, we're gonna need a lot of ideas. We're doing this every week. So basically, I really just want to teach you how you can practice this on your own. I feel like the way I'm going to explain it, personally, feel like it's going to kind of make sense. You know, I can always go into more detail, but I kind of want to keep it simple and really basically not over explain it, because there are some really good explanations out there, but you're not going to understand them until until you've caught on. It's not a great way to learn. It's a great way to further your understanding once you've learned the basics. You know what I'm saying? It's like advanced algebra. You know, you don't learn that until you learn regular, whatever you need to learn leading up to that. So basically, if you have the ability, I recommend getting a quickset lock, because quickset is the easiest key way to learn anything on, whether it's picking, gutting, well, not gutting, I'm not going to say that, picking, anything from regular to security pins. Most of us should already feel very comfortable with quicksets. The wide open keyway, it has that inner ledge on the right hand side that you can work off of, because really we want to focus all of our attention onto what's going on inside the lock via the feedback from the spool pins and the regular pins. So if you have the abilities, it would be nice to have spool pins and regular pins, a plug follower, and pinning tweezers, so you can go ahead and gut the lock and pin it up the way you would like, because we only need 2 pins. We need our key pins 1 and 2, and then you need 2 driver pins, one being a spool, one being a regular driver pin. You can put them in any order, doesn't matter. I think for this example, I think my driver pin is in spot 2 and my spool is in spot 1. Does not make a difference, because it's gonna pick the same when there's spool pins in that, and I'll tell you what I mean by that here in a second. So if you can pin your lock up like this, I think that's really gonna help you. And then as you start to get the understanding and really start to comprehend the feedback and reacting to it properly and getting successful picks in a row, then you can go ahead and add more regular driver pins, more spool pins, whatever the case, and obviously key pins, and then progressively pin up this lock to make it more challenging. And then that'll really start, once you start building up the amount of pins, then you'll really start getting the feel for it. So basically, I want to break down one thing before we get into this. When you're picking a lock with all regular pins, you put your tension on the core. One of those, however many pins in this lock, it would only hold 5, so one of those 5 pins is going to be bound. Great. You push up on it and you push the driver pin above the shear line. Now one of the other 4 remaining pins becomes bound up. You go through, you push on your key pins until you find the one that's bounding up, or you drag your pick along like some people do and feel for that speed bump, as they call it, and then you pick that pin. Well, spool pins pick differently. Now the good thing is it doesn't matter how many regular pins and how many spool pins are in there. Obviously, it could be different combinations. You can have 1 spool and 4 regular driver pins, all the way to just all 4 spools and 1 driver pin. I mean, you can even have it with all just spool pins. If it's all just spool pins, then this first part of this explanation is not gonna be of any good, because you just pick it as a spool pin, which I'm going to get into here in a second. But I'm saying this because when there's regular driver pins, which they're 98% of the time, most lock companies don't just throw spool pins in. You'll see that more throughout the lock picker community. But, typically they at least have, if they have 4 spools in a 5-pin lock, then obviously they typically have just 1 regular pin. 99.9% of the time, and that 0.1 is because I've seen it happen on a fluke, your regular driver pins are going to be bound first, and that's because they're bigger in thickness. If you think about it, the spool is missing some of its outside diameter in the middle, and that's what gives it that spool look. Well, that pin is not going to reach this inside wall when you're putting your pressure on your core or your tension on your core, because it's not as thick as regular driver pins. So they're all your regular driver pins are going to hit the inside wall, which cause it to bind up before your spool. So you'll go through and, for example, there's 1 regular driver pin in here. You pick it, boom, it picks normal. You pick it just like you would a normal lock, but then all of a sudden you see, or you may feel something happen, which is called a false set. And that means your core is going to turn slightly forward clockwise, like you almost got the lock open, but it's not. That's what a false set means. It gives you that false sense of setting all the pins and thinking your lock is about to open, because for that split second your core, you may have felt it or have seen it, turned in the clockwise, the correct position that you needed it to go. Well, what's happened is the spool pins are still in there. They haven't been picked, but now they're telling you, hey, you forgot about us, motherfucker. So what happens is you have not officially picked any spool pins, but it's telling you now, once you're in a false set, that all you have left to pick are spool pins. So how you pick those spool pins is still the same way. You don't ever let go of your tension once you get into a false set, and you start going through and feeling for a binding pin. And the only difference is when you start to lift up on your bound pin, which will be your spool pin, you'll notice that it's going to start going counterclockwise every single time you go to lift up on that key pin. If you stop lifting up on the key pin, the counter rotation is going to cease. But the higher you lift that key pin, the more counter rotation, the more your core is going to turn to the left or counterclockwise, which is a good thing. That's how you line this. Because see, what happens is our spool becomes in a diagonal in here, and that's why we get our false set. But when you find the correct, now it'll be able to reach that sidewall, and now one of however many spool pins inside your lock are going to be bound up. And like I said, when you find the right one, it'll still be bound, but when you start to lift up, you'll get counter rotation. You'll see your core turning counterclockwise. And what you want to do is you want to ever so slightly ease up on your tension, but don't lose control of your tension, because if you screw this part up, then you're going to reset all your pins. But basically, as you keep lifting that key pin higher, you're going to see that counter rotation, and basically you just want to allow that core to counter rotate itself back into the starting position, but not too far, because then all your pins are going to reset. But if you can hold it until it gets vertically straight up and down that keyway, because you're still lifting your key pin up, which is causing that counter rotation to continuously happen, once you get to this starting position again, your driver pin will have been lifted above the shear line, and as long as you still keep tension on your tension wrench, then as soon as it hits that shear line, you're going to get thrust back into a false set, which is an A+ job. That means you have officially picked your first spool pin, and then you repeat the process for however many remaining spool pins there are. The next one will do the same thing. You start lifting up on the bound key pin, and you notice, hey, I'm getting that counter rotation. You bring that, you keep lifting that key pin up while managing your tension. And as soon as it gets back to the vertical position, that driver pin should have been pushed above the shear line. And as long as you didn't give up too much tension or allow this counter rotation to come too far back counterclockwise, then you're good. Your driver pin will be picked, and you'll get thrust back forward, and you'll pick however many remaining spools again. And whenever you're on your last spool, instead of getting thrust back into a false set, you'll go all the way forward on your way back down, and then your lock will be open. I don't know how to explain it any simpler than that. I'm going to go ahead and show it a couple times. And I honestly believe if you guys practice this and really get acquainted with, what a false set is, how it feels, by visually, just keep putting yourself in it. Don't worry about picking it consistently. Just practice picking that regular driver pin, going into a false set, and then resetting. And really pay attention to what the feedback feels like. I recommend top the keyway. I think it transfers the feedback really well with spools. But the choice is yours. And then, start practicing the counter rotation and then putting it all together. And then, the better you get, once you understand it, add more spools, add more regular driver pins. That way, you'll have 2 or 3 regular driver pins and everything will pick normal, and then boom, you're full set. And, so let me go ahead and show you. I know we're at 10 minutes, but I wanted to explain it as much as I possibly could where it makes sense, but as simple as possible. So, I'm in my lock, watch my core. Now, I only have 1 regular and 1 spool, so as soon as I pick that first pin, which is 99.9% of the time going to be a regular, because of the size, you're going to go into an immediate false set. Like right there, I went into a false set. Ever so slightly, you could barely see it. But, don't know if you can see it. But watch, I'm not going to continue. I'm going to put the lock back into its starting position. Watch my core. Do you see how it turned and clicked back in place? Watch it again. I'm going to pick my first binding pin. And if you saw that core and that tension wrench jump forward ever so slightly, you can feel it very good, and I feel it more than I see it sometimes, because not all spools are cut the same. Some of them you can barely notice. Some of them you'll really see a degree of rotation when you first enter that false set. But I can really feel it. Like, it's a big impact in the tip of my pointer finger. But hey, so now what this is telling you is, hey, you have only spool pins, whether it's 1 or however many. Only you will know, because you know how many pins you already picked prior before you got into a false set. In this case, we only have 1 of each. So basically, we're just looking for a bound pin, and I found it. So watch as I start to lift it up like you would when you find a bound pin. Watch my core start turning counterclockwise, and I want to manage my tension to allow it just to become back vertical just long enough so as I am pushing up on that key pin, which is giving me continuous counter rotation on my core, that I want to line it up perfectly. And then that way, in my case, as soon as it's perfectly lined up straight up and down, I'll still have my pointer finger pushing on my tension wrench, not overpowering the counter rotation, allowing it to still come back towards me, but enough that as soon as it gets here, I can stop it without losing the pins I set. And then, if in my case, that will unlock the lock, so my tension wrench will go back forward, clockwise rotation. And if there were more spool pins to pick, then it would not open. It would just fall back into a false set, which is good. You just repeat the process. But watch the counter rotation. Now it's very slight. I'm gonna show you guys a couple times, but it's really not much more than this if you just practice it. And I know it's going to be silly and simple, but really get used to that feeling of, because not all spool pins are created equal. You may have a spool where you're learning and it gives you really noticeable feedback, but it may not always be like that. So just practice. Boom, I went straight into my false set because I picked all my regular driver pins. Like I said, it's just 1. So watch my core give me that counter rotation. Watch my tension wrench. It's going to almost line back up at that blue. Oop. Boom. It's really not hard. And I understand that it does get frustrating. It took me a while myself to learn them, but once I learned them, it just took off like a wildfire. So, ever so slightly, I'd went into a false set. And now I found my bound spool. And when I lift up on it, I got counter rotation, but I was still applying pressure to my, so instead of the counter rotation fully coming back like that, it just ever so slightly came back, and obviously it was way up here and not down here in the open position, but I can freely move this without it, doing anything. But, your counter rotation just ever so slightly goes back and it lines up, and then, you'll either go forward into a false set or into the unlocked position. I really hope this makes sense for you guys. Basically, like I said, you pick it normally, and then as soon as you get into a false set, if you ever see yourself in this position or you feel it, you can definitely tell, because it's something that does not normally happen when you pick a normal pin tumbler lock without security pins. You can see, I can tell that's a false set, and I'm sure a lot of pickers out there who already have this down can tell. And I get that, it's hard to tell that as a newer picker, but that's why you just want to practice it, and then you can see it yourself. You'll look at it and say, oh yeah, my core is turned just a little bit. And then to pick your spool pin, when you're lifting up and you get that counter rotation, right now it's picked. I just was able to control the tension, which I'm not saying that's what you need to do. I'm just trying to show you guys that what's actually going on. Went into a false set. So I'm going to try and control my counter rotation. See it coming back. Oh. See, it's very hard to do it in slow motion and get it correct, because it's just hard to move the tension wrench in slow motion. False set. Find my bound spool. I'm going to get counter rotation, watch my core, and as soon as it lines straight up and down, I get it open. Now, after you really practice this, then you can go ahead and add more driver pins. Doesn't matter which order you want to do it. If you want to add another driver pin, and then you'll notice, hey, now I'm picking my lock like I normally know how to. 1 pin down, 2 pin down, boom, now I'm in my false set. Now what did Derek say? Okay, I find the binding pin, which in this case, if you're doing what I'm telling you exactly right now, I just picked 2. I know in this case, I just know that there's only 1 spool, so I'm going to feel for that bound pin. When I lift up on that key pin, I'm going to see counter rotation, so I just want to get my keyway lined back up and down pretty much for the 2 holes, so my driver pin can go straight up through. And as soon as it does, without letting go of too much tension, then my lock will go into the open position after that pin is picked. So one more time. That's your false set. Watch this again. I know it doesn't look like much, but whenever you're picking a lock and you see your core and you'll feel it, like the feeling that I get like of it moving clockwise is a lot greater than what you can visually see. Because watch, when you're putting tension on your core, it already looks like it's in a false set, but you'll see it jump just like there, and that tells you, hey buddy, all you got left is spool pins of some variation. Now you've gone through, and every time you find a bound pin, you're going to get counter rotation, and you just ever so slightly let it come counterclockwise till it gets perfectly up and down. And then because you haven't let go of the tension, as soon, mine always goes into the, the pin will get picked, and then before I know it, I'm going back forward. It happens that fast, and it will become like second nature to you guys. So boom, false set. Show it again. Oh, There's your false set. Now I'm going to pick my spool pin. I'm going to find that bound pin. Counter rotation. Boom. Now see, I wish I can slow it down when I was doing the counter rotation really good. False set. Because as my counter rotation is going on, like, so I'm trying to do it slow enough so you can see what's going on. Alright, false set. Like, because like right here I'm picked, so the counter rotation is just slight. False set. Counter rotation, and right here I'm good. It's just very slight pushing back of the counter rotation, just enough to straighten that spool back out so it'll go directly above the shear line. So you definitely want to manage full set. You definitely want to manage your tension wrench. And when you feel that key pin, when you lift it up and you'll feel the counter rotation, and you'll see it if you're looking at your log. Oh. Damn, what is going on? Counter rotation. And right there, I brought my counter rotation right back to there. And then my lock is open. Let's try and show that one more time. Counter rotation. That means all your regular driver pins are picked. And you may have 3, 2, 4 spool pins left. I don't know, because it depends on how you pin up your lock and whatever the case is. But this always means that all you have left are spool pins to pick. Look at that counter rotation. Right here my lock is picked. Whoa, that didn't mean to happen. I think I somehow had hit both pins at the same time. And again, what the hell? False set. Counter rotation. Oh, see, I went too far back and my pins resetted. Like I said, you don't have to go. There's my false set. And watch what happens if I go too far back. Now my lock is locked back up because I have allowed too much tension to ease off of that core. Therefore, I lost the pins that I already had bound and picked. So, false set means you only got spools. Find your binding spool, you'll get counter rotation, and it'll just be for a split second. Oh, see, like I said, that's the problem right there. It becomes very hard to slowly turn your tension wrench for video purposes. Alright, false set. Alright, false set. Jeez. Jeez, guys, I'm sorry. Alright, false set. Open. So, I hope this makes sense to you guys. Tried to keep it simple. I know the video was a little bit longer, but I really wanted to explain it and show it over and over so you can hopefully get the idea. Maybe it won't make any sense, but hey, hopefully it does. Sparrow's Reload Kit, you can still enter. I got plenty more videos. I just wanted to really touch on this as quickly, I know it was long, but as possible, hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully the information's good. Thank you guys for all the support and all the subscribers. And any ideas for the next week's giveaway or week after that or whatever, just leave it in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully that will help some of you get the understanding of how to start and what you're looking for. And then as far as feedback, you know, like the pins are telling you, hey, you're in a false set. That means you only have spools. Okay, now you know, you feel that binding pin and you see your core and you feel counter rotation. You feel the tension wrench fighting you going back the other way. Those are good signs. So just practice and really understand that feedback. Alright, see you guys in the next video.